Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be speaking to you this afternoon. I must say I've been doing this role at the intersection of academia and industry for 5 years now, and this is every year this opportunity to meet people from industry is one of the highlights of that work, and where we have an opportunity to speak to you all and deepen the relationships we already have. So, the University of Edinburgh, as you may know, is a world-leading university. It's a very old university. We've been around for over 400 years. And a lot of the work we're doing on the innovation side really builds on expertise and excellence in computing, AI, engineering, and other digital technologies, and how they have started to pervade all kinds of other sciences, especially in science and engineering, in the natural sciences and the engineering sciences, but also beyond in the arts, humanities, social sciences, in medicine, and in the life sciences. We are our School of Informatics, which is my home school, as an academic, is ranked first in the UK in research power. In engineering, we are ranked first in Scotland in collaboration with Heriot-Watt. And really, what I think is quite impressive is also our standing in terms of how we engage with industry, innovation, and infrastructure, where we are ranked 5th in the world. And as you will see in these rankings, we are in the company of very, very prestigious and successful academic institutions. We are also really engaged with industry and innovation, and there's a long history to doing that. So Edinburgh was the 3rd place in the world to start doing AI research. In fact, the School of Informatics and the university are celebrating 60 years of AI and computer science this year. There's a lot of many celebrations around that. And on the back of that excellence, and through other developments, for example, our early engagement with supercomputing, which has led us to now have the 3rd largest supercomputer in the world that's based at a university, we have really developed a profile where we think that we can use and benefit from digital technologies and digital frontier technologies to underpin and as a driver for accelerating research, development, and innovation across all disciplines. We're a very broad university, and I think this picture here I always use to demonstrate this breadth. So this is, the black dot is our ranking among all academic institutions in the UK in each discipline. These are the 21, 22 disciplines where we submit to this our report to these national rankings. And as you can see, one of the really interesting things is that in almost all disciplines we're in the top 5 or top 10 in the UK. And that, I think, is a different message from saying we're just great engineers, computer scientists, mathematicians. I think it really demonstrates that we are a place where you can come to find experts in all domains and all disciplines. For example, if you're working, let's say, in healthcare technologies, you can find the medics and the engineers and the computer scientists in one place. If you're working in finance, you can find the people in the business school, people in the social sciences, and people doing cybersecurity, let's say. And I think we have a very strong track record in engaging with industry and commercializing our own work. A lot of licensing going on, and our spin-outs are raising a lot of money. And we've also played a great role with work that started in the School of Informatics over 12 years ago in terms of nurturing the local tech ecosystem. So we've run industry and investor engagement events that have helped companies raise over $1 billion, $1.5 billion. And our tech transfer and commercialization arm, Edinburgh Innovations, has really developed this idea of having what we call innovation engines. And I'm not going to talk about all of them, but what I want to say here is that it's interesting how in the modern world, digital underpins all of these areas, whether you're talking about renewables and net zero, whether you're talking about space, whether you're talking about digital therapeutics, agri-tech. We have what Bill Gates has said is the epicenter of livestock genomics out in Roslin, and of course all of that is these days data-driven. We've got very strong robotics, quantum, and AI, which is going to be our focus for this session, and we are trying to use digital in all kinds of ways to benefit science and the economy in all these domains. So what do we want to talk about in this session? focusing on the theme of digital frontiers, we thought we would talk about 3 technologies in particular that we find very exciting, and they are emerging technologies. They are technologies that in some areas are starting to mature, and technologies where we're particularly strong. And these are robotics, AI, and in particular natural language processing and language technologies, and quantum computing. I'm delighted that in the panel later on, we have 3 of the leading figures in these areas at the university with us today. So Mirella Lapata, who leads the Edinburgh Lab for Integrated AI, will be talking about all the sorts of things that we are trying to do there, in particular in terms of integrating different methods. So everybody these days is talking about ChatGPT, but we want to convince you there are so many other things that are going on in AI that are exciting, and many of them for us are connected to our natural language processing capability in the Edinburgh NLP group, which is, if not the top, then definitely among one of the top 3 groups in this area in the world. We've got the Edinburgh Centre for Robotics, a collaboration with Heriot-Watt University, where Adam Stokes, who will be joining the panel later on, is a co-lead of the National Robotarium, which is a new hub that's been built at Heriot-Watt, and also works in the UK Network for Robotics Autonomous Systems, and specializes in his own research on soft robotics and bio-inspired robotics and robotics engineering. And also Elham Kashefi, my colleague, who leads the Quantum Software Lab. That's a new big initiative that is funded by the National Quantum Computing Center and the research councils, and Elham there leads this Quantum Software Lab. She's the scientific director, the chief scientist for the National Quantum Computing Center. And what's very interesting about that is that it's really about taking industry challenges and trying to understand how quantum computing can help address some of those. So let me give you, before we go into the panel discussion, a few highlights and a few examples. So there is so much that we do in these areas that it's hard to pick some examples, but I thought I should go into 3, one from each area. But before I do that, I just want to give you a sense of the breadth of things people are engaged in. So here you can see, for example, our NASA robot Valkyrie. There's only 3 of those in the world, and this is the only one outside the US. So we're working with NASA here to send robots to space. That's our robotic expertise that has been deployed there. But that's also doing lots of work in nuclear decommissioning, offshore robotics, having these kind of legged robots on oil rigs and gas platforms. There's a lot of work around human-robot interaction. Quite often that cuts across not only acting and interacting with humans, but also seeing, machine vision, and speaking, natural language, conversational AI, and this idea of augmenting human capability with AI, but also cutting across different areas of AI and robotics. Image recognition, bio-inspired robotics. There's a lot of work in kind of trying to understand, for example, how insects operate to build different and new types of robots, but also an area that Adam, and I'm sure he'll speak about this, focuses on, which is soft robotics, where we stop thinking just about rigid mechanical limbs and we start using other types of materials, and there's very exciting work there at the intersection of kind of very interesting types of engineering, where you can stop thinking about robot ants and you can start thinking about robot squids and other pretty exciting, and sometimes for me at least as a humble AI professor, very outlandish things sometimes, but it's the outlandish that then becomes the groundbreaking, and that then becomes the transformative. Machine translation, this is a graph from a few years back when our machine translation systems, which we've been really, work done here has been really instrumental to driving the quality of statistical machine translation, using very big data sets to train these systems, and in this competition, for example, we were doing better. I don't know what the statistics are today, but at some point our algorithms were doing better than those of Google and others. Lots of other things I won't go into about prosthetics, graphics, self-driving cars, social media analytics. There's a whole range of things one could talk about, but as I said, I pick picked three particular example. The first one is a really fun one. It's now a few years, 3-4 years back that this was done, and although it's quite fun, I think it demonstrates the abilities of AI and the opportunities we have. So this was a bit of work to try and get a computer to watch CSI episodes and predict who's the culprit of the crime. And so the interesting thing is here you combine the script, so text, and then the video, the imagery, and the actual audio, what's being said in the episode, and you try to train these deep neural networks to try and guess who the murderer is. And that's really a fascinating challenge, and it's a lot about this idea of the lab that Mirella leads, which is about integrating different components that can do different things. So if you look at trying to, for example, understand the gestures of someone and whether they might give them away, you know, when it says camera holds on Peter Berglund's worried look, so you've got some information in the script, but you've also got Peter Berglund's image. And, you know, maybe he's giving away that he might be the culprit by the way he looks into the camera. And of course, machines don't know anything about crime as such, but with sufficient data, as you can see, they don't do quite as well as humans, but they do all right. And I think that's pretty impressive when you think of something like solving a crime scene. The whole crime fiction industry has flourished on the basis of the fact that it's hard to predict. So I think this is quite impressive. The second example, and this again cuts across lots of different areas. So in robotics, of course, a lot of robotics is these days driven by machine learning. It's driven by training algorithms on a lot of data. But when you think about how you do that in the wild, how you do that, let's say, with a surgical assistance robot in the operating room, or how you do it with a self-driving car, then of course, even if you give human instruction during that training, you have to make sure that that training is safe, the training procedure itself. So what my colleague Ram Ramamurthy and some people have worked on here is how you can take the types of constraints that humans might understand. Humans don't understand huge matrices with numbers in them. Humans can say things like stay at least a foot away from an obstacle or from the patient while you're trying to learn how to move this object. And those, interestingly, those types of constraints are better expressed in languages that belong in what we now call good old-fashioned AI or symbolic AI, where you've got rule-based systems, but rules are things humans can communicate and understand easily, whereas these complex neural networks, you can't. So they developed this method where you can specify these constraints in a somewhat exotic logical language. And so, for example, this says, don't tip the cup until you're close to the bowl. You don't want to drop, when you're moving a cup with liquid, you don't want to drop the liquid on the floor or whatever. And as you can see, if you use this constraint, then this is the curve of the movement trajectory that the robot arm learns. It steers clear of this dangerous region, which might be, for example, the patient. You want to give them the tea rather than spill it on their face, right? Obviously. And these may sound like really mundane examples, but they are really important when you're in the development and progress of these technologies. And now, unfortunately, I am missing my quantum example because something went wrong with the slides. Right. I'll just talk about it without visuals. So one example that they're working on in the quantum software lab is, for example, trying to think about a very common business problem, which is trying to generate data, whether that's synthetic data or the naturally collected data, and share that with other entities in a way that doesn't compromise the privacy and confidentiality of the data. So a combination of quantum cryptography and using kind of new machine learning approaches that can exploit the fact that you have quantum computers can provide a pathway towards trying to address these issues. And I'm going to have to refer here to Alam, who will tell us more about it, as this slide somehow disappeared. And maybe it was quantum, you know. It might be here, it might be there. It might be somewhere in some parallel world. We do not know. So on this slide, this is deliberately designed to be not very legible or instructive. What I tried to do was just gather the names of all the industry partners, the 3 initiatives I was talking about, the Edinburgh Centre for Robotics, the Quantum Software Lab, and the Edinburgh Lab for Integrated AI have on board in what they're doing. And not all of these, some of these are public research institutes and so on. But you can see that the range of industry partners we're working here is immense, and they range from anything like, you know, car or motorcycle companies to big financial services firms and retail banks, but also research labs, oil and gas companies, startups, SMEs, the big innovative AI companies like DeepMind, but also, you know, construction companies. And so I guess what I want to say here, the message is that we are looking for different routes to working with companies. Sometimes it is the application problem that is exciting. For example, as I mentioned, in the Quantum Software Lab, in quantum computing, we don't yet know what problems we can solve with quantum computing. So we need to look at specific use cases of specific problems. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean our industry partner actually does quantum computing. You know, they might be in transport, in engineering, in manufacturing, in nuclear. Who knows, right? In other cases, we have collaborations like with DeepMind, for example, or with let's say companies like 5AI, where the industry partner themselves is a high-tech company that is working at the frontier of digital technologies, and then we can partner up and do complementary things. In other areas, for example, in cyber, we have a big partnership with a company called IOG, where essentially the R&D, having the R&D done at the university is useful for them because they can tap into the talent and expertise of the university to do R&D on their crypto research. So I want to end by talking a little bit about the support mechanisms and the wider landscape we have around innovation in digital. So Emily and I work at the Base Center, which you can think of as an innovation hub that sits kind of across lots of disciplines in the university and provides the kind of one-stop shop or the entry point where we have a kind of a porous environment where students, academics, and people from industry, the public sector, government, and so on work in one place. So it's a very, very unusual thing for a university to have. It's not a research department. It's not an educational unit of the university. And it's really our proposition to the outside world where we say we're here to work with you on challenges that are grounded in your work in what academics call the real world. Everybody else just calls it the world. And I think so in some sense also today's event is an open invitation to grow the conversations we already have with all of you, but also to start new ones and to explore new opportunities, because that's what we're there for. And as you can see in this, we're not going to talk about all of these technologies today, but of course they are the sort of things that we all think are what will drive digital innovation in the future. And Andy already mentioned we are a global university that's rooted locally, and I hinted at the fact that we view ourselves as an important partner in developing the local tech ecosystem. And on this slide, you can see kind of the different hubs. So we are based kind of in the middle, but you can think of us as part of the university. You can also think of us as just another space where tech partners and SMEs and startups and corporates come together alongside all the others that we have around us. And if you're not from Edinburgh, then I must in advance apologize that you're going to miss most of what seems to be a very lovely day today in Edinburgh. But if you're not from Edinburgh, I think it's important to highlight that all of these things are, very close to each other. We collaborate very closely. We're geographically very close. And there are really tremendous opportunities, not for us just to work with industry, but also for us to play a role in developing opportunities across different partners. The final 3 minutes I want to spend talking a little bit about the big picture, which goes beyond what we just do in the science and engineering disciplines and what we do in the base center and schools like informatics and engineering and maths and geosciences and biology, those who are kind of closest to us in terms of the themes we're working on. We are part of a very big program that's called the Data-Driven Innovation Program. It's part of the Edinburgh South East Scotland City Region deal, and this is a 660 million investment in driving the local economy through the use of data over 15 years. And we're just entering kind of we're in the middle of the 5th year of that process. And that will see kind of be apart from the base center, 5 other hubs emerge. The National Robotarium opened last autumn. That's out near the airport on the Harriet Watt campus. And it is the UK's national innovation hub for robotics and autonomous systems. We also have the Edinburgh Futures Institute. That's just around the corner near the old, where the old Royal Infirmary was, 3 times as large as Bayes when it opens next year. The Usher Institute, which is going to be in the Bauer Quarter, south east of the city, and very next to one of the biggest teaching hospitals in Scotland, and that's health and social care. We've got finance, fintech, public sector, tourism and festivals, creative industries, those sorts of sectors closest to the Edinburgh Futures Institute. And then the Roslin Innovation Centre and Agritech Hub in the a bit further down south of the city. And that's, I already hinted at our capability in agritech, but of course that's also going to grow massively through this investment. So we have a big and ambitious plan, which is all based on having a common data and compute infrastructure that sits in the Edinburgh International Data Facility, and which is developed by EPCC, the university's supercomputing and high-performance computing unit. And we have a big ambition to drive skills development, research, the adoption of data, entrepreneurship, and the development of data assets through this 15-year-long program to boost economic development in 10 key sectors in the region. And each of these sectors is supported specifically by one hub, but of course we all work across the university. So the final thing I want to mention there is that this has already borne a lot of fruits and led to really big innovation initiatives. And I think it's worth mentioning some of these. So DataLog, for example, is the first integrated framework for gathering data across all of health and social care in Lothian and then more widely in Scotland. So that's a massive asset for public health, population health research, but also other areas like genomics and social care. The Smart Data Foundry is a 25 million project that looks at using open banking and financial data for good and as a springboard for innovation. That's already done lots of work, for example, with our partners from NatWest during COVID to analyze the impact of COVID on the economy. Creative Informatics is a program that led by the School of Informatics and the Art College that was around trying to boost innovation in the creative sector. The creative sector is, of course, very important to Edinburgh and the region with the Edinburgh festivals and so on. And another one around food security in Africa, Jamil Observatory, big project supported by philanthropy to look at how we can use data to understand food situation in Africa and improve food security through a combination of understanding livestock, cattle, climate change, and so on and so forth. And big initiatives are also sometimes that we're involved in. Several times they have been driven by big investment from corporate partners. The Advanced Care Research Centre that seeks to revolutionize how we deal with aging and Care, which is a big project with Legal and General. The Center for Technomoral Futures, our kind of flagship initiative on data and AI ethics, doing data for good and responsible AI, through a very generous gift from Bailey Gifford, a local investment firm. The new Center for Investment Innovation, funded largely by Aberdeen. So that brings together mathematicians, computer scientists, economists, and people from financial and business studies to understand what investment, the practice of investment will look like in the future through AI and so on. But also other areas like manufacturing, where we have in Rosyth, north of the Firth of Forth, one of the kind of the most, I would say, probably the most high-tech fatigue testing facility for wind turbine blades. So the target here is kind of offshore energy production, but and this is done in collaboration with Babcock. So I've already taken up 3 minutes more of your time than I should have. So I'll stop there, and thank you very much, and I'll come back in a minute to have our panel discussion. But I'll hand over to Emily for now.